Thank you for tuning into Zim Newsbeat TV.
Pastor Chris divorce, faith, grace, and the power of purpose. When news of the Pastor Chris divorce surfaced nearly a decade ago, it triggered a wave of public reaction, speculation, and headlines. Pastor Chris' divorce didn't mark an end, but rather it became a pivot point for even deeper ministry work. For followers of the renowned global evangelist, Pastor Chris Oyakhilome, it was an unexpected moment that tested not only their understanding of his personal life but also their perception of how spiritual leaders handle real-life challenges. But what unfolded afterward was not a narrative of failure, but one of resilience, restoration, and renewed divine focus. Oyakhilome's life and ministry continue to thrive and expand worldwide, proving that personal trials, when placed in God's hands, can become stepping stones to greater impact. Today, his divorce stands as a chapter that has ultimately contributed to his broader story of spiritual leadership and global transformation. Separating the man from the moment, a look at the divorce. The divorce between Chris and Anita Oyakhilome was finalized in 2016 in the United Kingdom. After years of marriage and ministry partnership, the announcement came with little public detail, other than the formal legal grounds. Still, that didn't stop media outlets from speculating. But what stood out was how Pastor Chris responded. There was no public drama. No harsh words. No finger-pointing. Instead, he remained calm, composed, and purpose-driven. When questioned, he acknowledged the situation briefly and stated, "No matter the situation, I am a man of God, and I will remain a man of God." This simple statement defined the tone of everything that followed. It emphasized a clear truth: while his personal life was undergoing change, his spiritual assignment was untouched. The divorce didn't mark an end, but rather it became a pivot point for even deeper ministry work. Spiritual maturity in the face of personal change. It's rare to see public figures handle such situations with the level of grace Pastor Chris displayed. Divorce is painful, private, and often complicated. But it can also become an opportunity to reflect, realign, and refocus. For Oyakhilome, the transition was met with even greater energy toward soul winning, global missions, and teaching believers about the unshakable life in Christ. He preached more passionately, wrote prolifically, and launched new global outreach platforms that brought healing, hope, and salvation to millions. Many saw the divorce as a personal loss. But those within Christ Embassy and beyond witnessed something different: a deeper surge of spiritual commitment, visionary leadership, and unwavering faith. Pastor Chris' example teaches us that trials do not define us. Our response to them does. And when rooted in the Word, our responses become testimonies that inspire others. Ministry expansion after the divorce. In the years following the divorce, the ministry witnessed exponential growth. Events like the Healing Streams live healing services reached over 7 billion unique connections in 2023 alone. The Rhapsody of Reality's daily devotional expanded into over 8,000 languages, becoming one of the most translated books in the world. The Global Day of Prayer, a 24-hour prayer marathon launched during the COVID-19 pandemic, unified believers from every continent and denomination in collective intercession. His partnership with Pastor Benny Hinn, including joint healing crusades and teachings, reinforced his global spiritual stature. Pastor Chris' divorce was not a setback. It was a personal chapter that God used as a launchpad for even greater spiritual outreach. It emphasized that divine purpose doesn't collapse under personal pressure, it rises above it. Embracing wholeness, lessons from the journey. Pastor Chris' divorce provides profound lessons for the Christian community. 1. Your purpose is bigger than personal pain. Pastor Chris never let the divorce distract him from his calling. He chose to focus on what God had called him to do and let his purpose lead the way. 1. Private challenges require public grace. Handling a public divorce with such calmness is no small feat. It reveals the importance of emotional intelligence and spiritual maturity. 1. Healing is not just for the sick. Even leaders need healing: emotional, spiritual, and relational. But healing is a process that comes from within, by the Word and Spirit. One life after divorce is not the end. Many who go through divorce feel like it's the end of their meaningful life. But Pastor Chris' divorce shows there is life and great purpose after such events. Pastor Chris' continued impact and influence. Chris Oyakhilome continues to be a source of faith and inspiration. Christ Embassy Ministry operates in over 100 countries, and through the Chris Oyakhilome Foundation International, COFI, countless lives have been touched through free education, emergency relief, and poverty alleviation. His messages reach billions through Love World networks, online platforms, and satellite TV. He remains one of the most respected and followed pastors globally, with millions tuning into his teachings weekly. The impact of Pastor Chris' divorce on his ministry? Virtually none in a negative sense. In fact, it highlighted the depth of his character and the power of his convictions. Where others may have faltered, he soared. Living beyond labels, the legacy continues. It's tempting for the world to label people by their past. But Pastor Chris has always taught that in Christ, we are new creations free from the limitations of yesterday. That's the message that shines through in the wake of his divorce. You are not defined by what happens to you, but by how you respond in faith. He didn't let the world tell his story. He let the Word write it. This chapter in Pastor Chris' life has become a message to believers worldwide, that even in the midst of personal challenges, you can still live in victory, lead with grace, and finish strong.
For these and more stories, tune into Zim News Bit TV.